Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, a main event did not go down after a disastrous weekend for one of its participants. Can she come back from that? And what happens to the winner? Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley 2 goes down in 6 days. We'll discuss. I think it's a do or die for O'Malley at bantamweight, or is it? And will the winner draw out Amanda Nunes? By that, I mean it's Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison in the co-main event at UFC 316. That's a big pot at the end of the rainbow. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con. Look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes is out in Las Vegas, a co-host on the Junkie radio show with me Mondays and Thursdays. Danny Segura, a top reporter coming out of Miami. He hosts Hablemos MMA en Español para ustedes. Matt Wells is in Dallas, Texas, part of the editorial team. He calls the shots. Cold Coffee's doubling up. Sorry, Cold Coffee's on the ones and twos. And the other part of the dynamic duo is that graphic art, that cool graphic art. Got to give a shout out to Abby Subhan, Kamikaze. All right, hit the like button, folks. It helps us off to get the show on the road here. Let's discuss topic one. This past Saturday, UFC on ESPN 68 was uneventful, at least at the top of the bill. When just minutes prior to the main event going down, Macy Barber was pulled from competing. The promotion called it a last-minute medical issue. While doing her post-fight media, her opponent, Erin Blanchfield, referred to that medical issue as a seizure, as was told to her by a UFC official. Blanchfield was paid her show and win money, and a little cheddar from Barber because she missed weight the day before. And Blanchfield also stated she's not interested in a rebooking with Barber. I think all these deets are important. Also, since then, Barber has apologized to the UFC, the execs, Blanchfield, etc. Let me read that to you guys here. Comes from her Instagram. Quote, "Not what I had planned for a Sunday post. Thank you to everyone for the prayers and support. I owe an apology to the UFC, the execs there, Dana White and the matchmakers, Erin Blanchfield herself. P.S. My life is not messy, just a bad hand. We will get to the bottom of it and be back." All right, guys, let's react. Matt Wells, kick things off for us, please. Reaction to the bad hand that Barber was dealt this weekend.
I mean, super unfortunate. I think that was the first time that we've ever seen a fight get canceled that late. So where the walkout music was literally supposed to hit, production crew throws it back over to the commentary desk, who apparently was still getting the message from the production truck saying that, we don't know what's happening. And then they had to throw it to a commercial, which was crazy. Especially when everybody's ready to go, Erin's ready to go. But apparently, Macy wasn't, and it just capped off a bad fight week for her with the weight miss. Supposed to be returning to a big top 10 matchup. They were 4-5 according to the UFC rankings. This was supposed to be a big fight. The winner here was supposed to go out there and try to make a statement to steal that title shot from Natalia Silva, and it just didn't happen at the very last possible moment. So it's just, it's super unfortunate all the way around, and you got to wonder what this means for Erin Blanchfield, what it means for Macy Barber going forward. But it really, really sucks, man, that we didn't get to see this fight happen, especially after a fairly mediocre card up to that point.
And the champ was there too. A good chance to wow her, maybe talk some trash, position yourself. You also got to get, like you said, Silva out of the way, Jasmine Jasdavicius out of the way, Manon Perron and Grasso. They're going to try and claw their way back. Oh, man, I felt bad for Blanchfield. And, of course, with Barber, from the little we know, we certainly hope she comes back. Danny, your reaction to what didn't happen?
Yeah, it's quite shocking because literally they were expecting Macy Barber to walk out, and they just go back to the shot with DC Lorosenko and Brendan Fitzgerald, who are commentating the fight. And they're just like, we don't know what's going on, but as soon as we find out, we will let you know. We're expecting her to come out. And then we hit commercials, come back, and it's all of a sudden the fight is canceled. And this is something that Erin Blanchfield kind of jinxed it. Like, she had been voicing this entire time, like she's not too confident that she was going to make it to the fight. She doesn't trust her, this and that. And she did weigh in. Everything looked to be good, but like literally right at the last second, this fight fell apart. So yeah, it was terrible. Like, I mean, just terrible news in a division that is considered, in my opinion, right now the best in the UFC. You know, to have these type of things at the very high level in a very important fight that was supposed to resolve a lot of things in that weight class didn't happen. Yeah, it really sucks, and it's a big blow for the division.
Man, it cost her some money too. That little half pound, she did not want to go for it. You could tell she was already beaten down as far as she could. Goes, what's your thoughts?
There was a lot going on. I mean, look, first and foremost, I think fighter safety is always something that we want to focus on as fans, the organization, the fighters. So in no way, I think, are people complaining that she didn't make it to the fight. I think where people are trying to figure out what exactly is going on is what triggered that situation, right? Because you would think if she made it, she's training for 5 rounds. So you're putting your body through a lot. And if she made it all the way to weigh-ins with no issues, then you have to consider maybe that weight cut is what put her body in this situation, right? Maybe going through that weight cut, not making it, then the next day putting your heart through all that, all your your kidneys, your liver, going back to getting ready to fight again, and then having this issue. If it's related to weight cutting, then yeah, that's maybe a little bit more on Macy, and I can understand why people would be upset at that, and that's something that she would have to address going forward. But if it's not, then that's a different story, right? But not getting the fight, it doesn't happen that often in the UFC, surprisingly. So I can't really like grab my laptop and throw it at the TV or anything like that. But it was unfortunate, and it was something different. I just hope more information comes out, and I hope she can really get this under control, because those things can be very, very dangerous in life.
And is it tied to her health issues coming out of UFC 299 after she beat Sermonera? Remember, she spent 9 days in the jail. I think it was pneumonia, strep throat, staph, or something like that. And then she got a later fight booking in the summer against Rose that fell through, where Tracy Cortez stepped in. Is all this tied together? You know, that's the big question. She certainly does have more problems than just maybe a failed weight cut if they are tied to that. But we definitely wish her the best. You know, usually where you have a winner and a loser, and we say, well, what's next? So Matt Wells, this one's a tougher one. What is next for Blanchfield? I kind of feel like she almost won. She got paid, like I said, her show and win. She doesn't want any part of Barber again. But what do you do in this crowded field at flyweight?
I don't know. First off, is my mic good?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Okay. You sound good now.
All right.
Plus, you got a good voice, brother. So it sounds good without the mic too.
Sorry about that in the first one, but I guess going forward for Erin, like, she's in a super tough spot, because, I mean, what do? Do you fight backwards? I mean, like, I guess you could entertain a fight against someone like Dvalishvili, but she's also kind of in a position to where she could just sit on the sidelines, and like wait for that title fight to play out. But does she want to wait that long? It all comes down to, you know, what her and her team decide to do. But she's in a really weird spot, because, you know, she got robbed, so to speak, of an opportunity, you know, out of forces of her control, to go out there and make a statement and really put herself in that conversation for that title fight next. But now she's just kind of stuck in like this no man's land, waiting to see, I guess, what happens if the UFC does book Valentina versus Natalia Silva next, and when that fight would possibly take place. I mean, is that going to take place later this year? How late in the year? Just a lot of questions for her, and it really sucks in a lot of different ways, man.
Danny, what do you do with a Barber if she were to pull out of this, come out healthy, maybe even do a trial weight cut, prove to everyone she's good? What do you do with her? Six fight win streak, let's not forget.
Yeah, she had been doing quite well. As you guys know, in previous episodes, whenever the topic of Macy Barber has been brought up, I've been pretty high on her, and I think she was kind of forgotten in the division. But she kind of slowly crawled her way back up, and now is in talks of title contention and all that. Obviously, this is a big step back, but she's got to sort that out, man. She's got to sort out her health issues, obviously, not only because of her fighting career, but just in general. Health is everything. So I hope that she's okay. But yeah, she didn't look good on the scales, and even those little promo videos that Dana White puts, like, oh, 10 p.m. ESPN or whatever, and then they showed Macy Barber in the back kind of hitting pads and stuff. She didn't look right, man. She didn't look good. She looked kind of pale, and I don't know, she looked a little different. But man, as you see on the highlights there, when she's on, she's unstoppable against a lot of ladies. So I guess the most important thing is health, as I said. So first of all, just let's see what happens with all these medical tests that she's doing. And I hope that she does get to the bottom of it. And then once she's got that straightened out, then we go from there. But hard to match her up at this point, not really knowing what's going on with her health.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, like we stated earlier, not the sexiest card. It had its moments. We'll highlight those right now. Lots of decisions, but let's give some shine to some of the other names from this card. We'll go to Goes for that. Who you got, Goes?
Man, Dustin Jacoby is just so vastly underrated. I think, he's had his hiccups here and there. UFC tries to use him to put over other fighters, and it just not worked out in their favor. This dude, when he puts things together, he can be a nasty fighter, man. And I really hope that this is the start of something big, because that game, when it's on point, holy crap, man, he was like a Mack truck out there.
For sure. What are your thoughts of Matt Wells? Who else do you want to give some shine to from this card?
Shout out to Ramiz Brahima, man. That's 2 first-round finishes in a row, 2 bonuses in a row. The guy is a finisher. He's crazy. Like, he goes out there and really goes for it, man. And to me, like, one of the most surprising things about this card was the betting line on this fight. Like, he was up to like a plus 310 at some places, which was insane for an opponent like Billy Ray Goff, who's really unproven. That betting line didn't make any sense to me. The result certainly did, because I knew Ramiz was capable of doing what he did, and he went out there and made another statement, man. And then that post-fight interview was fantastic as well.
For sure. That guillotine didn't it remind you guys of Dan Miller like 15 years ago? I mean, it looked like he was going to pop him like a Pez dispenser. It was nasty. And then he really was the sportsman. As he's talking to the ref, he didn't wait for the ref to go, it's official, it's over. He kind of just started to let him go. And that was that. But wow, that was cruel almost. All right, let's get one from you, Danny.
No, I quickly want to say, Matt, even the odds makers aren't watching these Apex cards. That's why. But my highlight's going to be Mateusz Gamrot. He completely dominated Ludovic Klein. A fight that I was also surprised. A lot of people were picking Klein as like the solid underdog pick, that he was going to pull off the upset. And I'm like, what are you guys watching? Like, this is a guy that, was able to out-grapple Arman Tsarukyan. I know there's that statistic out there with like 95% takedown defense for Klein, but I mean, just look at who he's fought. I was pretty surprised that a lot of people thought this was going to be competitive. And it was a one-sided beatdown, and I think it proved why Mateusz Gamrot is knocking on the top 5 of the UFC lightweight division, and why Klein right now is currently unranked, although a very good fighter. So I just want to shout him out, because the guy's been fighting. Like, the guy had to take a fight against an unranked guy. He just wants to fight. Nobody wants to fight him. I get why. He's a tough fight. Not a big name, but man, it just kind of sucks seeing, like, and it only happens in MMA, right? In combat sports. In any other sport, like, if you are a very good team or whatever, you end up going against whoever, even if your style is boring or you're not as well known, etc. But in this case, we see a guy that's clearly very good, that should be fighting top 5 guys, and just can't, because people don't want to fight him. So that kind of sucks, and I feel for him. So I hope he gets a top 5 fight next, or just anyone in the rankings. And by the way, amazing calling out the God of War and changing his nickname to the God of Comfort Zone, Benoit Saint-Denis, because he denied fighting him earlier in the month at UFC 315 when his fight fell through. So solid call out there by Gamrot.
And he almost got that finish at the end. He was really starting to bring them elbows, them fists. He was close. He really needs more of those, but he is a tough out for sure. I want to give some shine back to Dustin Jacoby, but Go's already covered, man. Look, this guy just performed, right? What's next for him? Why didn't this guy get a bonus? I mean, what more do you want, UFC? Let's be honest here, fellas. The knockout is the bathing suit portion of Miss Universe. All right. The submissions and all that other stuff, that's that question at the end. What would you do to make the world better? Or when they come out with the evening gowns or whatever. But this is the bathing suit, the knockout. He's the only knockout of the card. All right. He pieced him up. He started with a stiff jab, like Seth Petrozelli over Kimbo. He wobbles him, right? Then he goes in there, throws a sequence of punches. Then he composes himself as they're clinched. Nasty uppercuts, Mike Tyson style, look like it was a hockey fight at times. Then he comes back with another 10-piecer. What more do the matchmakers want? I mean, like, seriously, who makes these decisions, man? I want to highlight whoever goofed not giving Dustin Jacoby his due, because that's, like I say, when I show up to the Apex, that's what I want to see, is something like that. We got to move on, man. I got to catch my breath. I'm like at 8,000 feet altitude over here in Arequipa, Peru. We move on to the MMA headlines. We're going to catch up on those. Some scary stuff coming out of the Aloha State. Former UFC and welterweight champion BJ Penn has been arrested again 3 times in 6 days, guys. This is going back to this past Friday. Same deal. Penn claims his family's been murdered and replaced by imposters. His mother, Lorraine Shin, states, quote, "I believe my son, BJ Penn, is suffering from Capgras delusional syndrome, a psychiatric disorder in which a person holds a delusion that a friend, spouse, parent, or other close family member has been replaced by an identical imposter." Shin wrote, end quote. Shin also wrote in a statement provided to the authorities, quote, "He believes I'm an imposter who has killed his family to gain control of the family assets," end quote. That's his mom, who was front row at every event. I mean, they're like this. This was a whole family thing. Reagan, his brother, was one of his top training partners. JD was like the manager. You know, others are saying this is pugilistic dementia. Could be that these two actually overlap, pugilistic dementia and maybe Capgras delusional syndrome. Either way, this is sad, fellas. And in my humble opinion, if he's not helped professionally, this will get much worse. Goes, you had a lot to say about this on last night's MMA Junkie Radio. Let's lead off with you. I thought you kind of unpacked the story pretty well then.
Well, I think first and foremost, you know, it says that's what his mother believes, right? And there's a difference between going on the internet and saying, hey, this kind of matches up with what's going on, and seeking medical help, professional medical help, and having that as a diagnosis. That's what they have to figure out first, because this comes from many different things. You know, I know first and foremost, we want to go at the UFC and say, look, this is from repetitive trauma to the brain, getting hit. And it probably is, you know, if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say it could be that, but it could also be a lot of other things. You know, brain tumors sometimes can ignite that. It's basically a misfire in your brain where when you see an image, right? So if I'm looking at the camera right now and I see Danny, right away it sends a message to another part of my brain that says, that's Danny. I like Danny, I'm gonna smile, right? He has a misconnection in his brain right now that doesn't allow him to do that. That can come from a brain tumor. This actually can come from cocaine usage, ketamine usage. It could be onset of Alzheimer's, dementia. There's so many different things. It's a symptom of schizophrenia. So I think first and foremost, they have to figure out, is this something that was diagnosed by a doctor? Is this something that the mother just believes he has? Because there are certain treatments that can help it depending on what the actual diagnosis is. But oh man, I mean, this is a really, really tough situation. And depending on the individual who's suffering from it, you can do a lot of damage if he's interpreting this as being fact, real stuff that's happening real time. And sometimes people's reactions are different. You know, George and I, our reaction might be a little different. We're not MMA fighters. You know, if you look at some of the arrest histories that BJ Penn has had, it's pretty scary stuff, you know, things that he's had in his hands when he's been arrested. So I would definitely treat this as a very, very serious issue, and they have to get a handle on it. 3 times in 1 week is not good.
Oh yeah, and what Goes is talking about is, like, in the early 2000s, he punched a cop. That was a pickle he had to get out of. He was in some trouble there, and then he pulled a machete, I think, on a neighbor. I think it was post-retirement or around, like, you know, 5-year mark from today's date. And so yeah, it's getting pretty scary. Matt, your thoughts on this, man? This is a legend, right? And I don't think it's as simple as just the restraining order, because obviously he's violating it. Doesn't mean anything to him. He's not working, you know, with that full deck the rest of us are. What do we do, man? I think the UFC's got to get involved, no? Like, help him get to some sort of a treatment center, in my opinion.
Yeah, the UFC absolutely should, because I think BJ is the type of guy that would, you know, listen to advice from UFC officials, especially someone like Dana White, that I'm sure he respects, you know, or if not Dana, some other UFC execs, you know, that's high level. But they should definitely do whatever they can in terms of making sure that he gets the, the counseling, the psychiatric help that he needs. Reach out to him and show that they care. Just don't, let all of these legal issues go without reaching out to him or his, his team, and try to connect with him in some way, because I think when guys go through this sort of stuff, they feel alone, they feel isolated. That's part of the things that he's been saying in some of these videos that he's posting, right? He feels like his family has been replaced, which if you are, just put yourself in that mental space, like pretend that you walk out into your living room and you don't recognize the people that you live with. Like, that's got to be a mind trip. And if that's what's really going through his head right now, whether it's, true or not, that's what his brain is telling him is happening, right? So that's got to be something you need someone to connect with, someone to help comfort you and help you realize one way or the other, hey, none of this stuff is actually happening. Like, you're actually in a good space right now, but somebody's got to help him, man, one way or the other. Whether it be the UFC, somebody else that really truly loves and cares for him, and make sure that nobody's there just to take advantage of him as well. We don't need to see that. It's from our legends, man, like of the sport. This is kind of the stuff that we fear when we talk about brain trauma later down the road. Like, we don't want to see the guys that we used to celebrate, watch on Saturday evenings, provide us entertainment. We don't want to see this part of the game. It's ugly. It could get very nasty. And if ignored, it could end in a very, very bad way. And I don't think anybody wants to see that.
I'd like to see that Dana White from about 15 years ago, who flew from Las Vegas to Orange County immediately when Quentin Rampage Jackson had that event on the 55 freeway down all the way to Newport Beach. He got him attorneys, he got him help. Same thing here, man. This guy thinks, all right, not only, let's not forget about the lack of recognition, he thinks that those people there murdered his family. Imagine if in one moment he has some sort of rage and connects those two, what he could do. Because think about what some of us would do, obviously, if somebody murdered our family and they're right there in front of us trying to take advantage of the situation. I mean, it's ugly. And folks, let's not forget, the UFC thinks so much of this guy. They created a UFC gym along with him. So they have taken that extra step with this fighter. Danny, your thoughts on this, man?
Very sad to see. I think you guys put it together like very well. Yeah, it's just sad to see like a legend, be going through this, and we know that getting punched in the head and brain trauma is obviously not good for you, right? And you watch fights and you kind of do think about that when you see a war or something, but once you see these type of things like years down the line, it really kind of makes you think about what is it that you're watching, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think the UFC has like definitely some responsibility here. It's one of their legends. Is a guy that literally built their company along with other guys as well. But without BJ Penn, I think he's a pillar for the UFC and for mixed martial arts in general. So I think the UFC does owe him and his family, to extend a hand and try to help them out in some sort of way. And also keep in mind, this is a guy that we already knew was having a lot of issues years ago. Yet the UFC kept giving him fights, and he, I believe, has the worst losing streak tied with Tony Ferguson in UFC history. And we would just wonder, why they keep giving him fights? Well, the argument is, he would fight for somebody else for the competition if they let him go, and he's still a big name, this and that. But you're also kind of responsible of this type of stuff, right? Like you are allowing him to take damage under your umbrella in order so you can profit, or at least not let others profit. And I think there needs to be a degree of a sense of responsibility for that. So again, I'm not blaming the UFC for this. BJ Penn chose to fight. BJ Penn chose this career. But it is sad to see. And I do think that the UFC own a degree of responsibility here with him and his family.
Yeah, man. I think about that PI, and how much resources they put towards the future, the present. Let's also think about the past at times, folks. All right. We had some fight bookings this week. I'll have the guys react here. I'll stick with Danny. Danny, Bonfim and Thompson, they're fighting on July 12th. Is this kind of the end of the road for Stephen Thompson? He seems to be that gatekeeper. he used to be the gatekeeper to the title. Now he's kind of like the gatekeeper to like the top 10, top 15. What do you think, man? Has he got any gas left?
He certainly does. I don't think he's going to retire anytime soon. And if he does, I mean, I'm cool with that. But he doesn't look like a fighter that's over the hill or washed or anything like that. He's certainly not prime anymore. So I think these type of fights are actually great for him. Match him up with strikers, match him up with guys around the top 10, top 15. And I think he would put up a good showing and, not embarrass himself, put a good fight and service in the sense of like letting a up and coming like Bonfim get a quality name. And watch out. I think, if you're not careful, if you don't do your homework, I think he can upset a lot of these guys. I love this fight. I think this is great matchmaking from the UFC. And yeah, props to the UFC. I'm still keen on that MVP Thompson fight, but this is not bad. I like it.
Yeah, and people still love them. Some Stephen Thompson, man. Goes. How about Roman Dolidze and Fluffy Hernandez on August 8th? That's a big one. Dolidze's turned things around a little bit lately, being a frequent fighter, getting the wins, kind of talking a little bit of smack. And of course, Fluffy Hernandez, man, he's got a third lung. He just won't stop. This is a true battle, a true test here to see who can take that step to become a title contender. What are your thoughts?
Fireworks, man. I think Fluffy Hernandez is a guy that, in the past we pointed to like Jorge Masvidal and we said, why didn't they promote him sooner? I feel like they should be doing more of that with Fluffy Hernandez. He's very likable.
Don't promote anybody though.
Fighter. What's that?
They don't promote anybody though.
True. But I think this is a guy that people should be getting behind even more. And Dolidze he's been showing up, man. So I really respect this fight. I think it's going to be a banger. Early lean though is Hernandez.
All right. Man, let's go outside the UFC for this one. Kevin Lee gets like another lifeline here, right? Gazi Rabadonov, tough customer out at PFL. This is a semifinal. So he's stepping into a tournament where if he were to take this down, he wins 500 G's. And man, this guy, he's kind of done the right things. He wanted to come through Dana White Contender Series. He really wanted to work his way up. Doors just seemed to close on the guy. He was a star in 2017 to 2018. But what are your thoughts on this fight booking? And is this kind of like a last chance for Kevin Lee?
I don't know. Kevin Lee seems to have 9 lives, man. But this is a terrible matchup for him, I think. I mean, Gazi is just he's a tough dude to deal with in that octagon, man. I don't know if this is a kind of matchup that's going to be the one that gets Kevin Lee back on track. Or stays on track rather, because he won his last fight, but other than that, like, it just seems like he's had these struggles. He's obviously been very competitive in recent years, obviously against some of the toughest names in the UFC, but the results weren't simply there. I mean, he still had good moments, but dude, even outside of the PFL, a matchup with Gazi right now, I don't know. I don't like it, but we'll see. Maybe Kevin Lee can surprise everybody.
He's always got that strong first round, that back take. We'll see, man. But Rabadonov does not stop. He's got a motor for sure. If anyone's connecting the dots, Kevin Lee is the older brother of Keith Lee, the popular food critic on TikTok and Instagram, who's just completely blown up. One other fight booking I'll talk about, Tim Elliott. Man, he's still got gas left in the tank, almost at 40 years old, or either almost 40 or 40, against Kaya Sakura, who had that debut in the UFC recently in a title fight. This is happening in Chicago. I love the way they're putting this fight card together. This is the veteran against that newcomer coming from Ryzen. Big matchup in the flyweight division. But again, it seems to be the theme here of this little segment, that last run, right, for Thompson, Lee possibly, and now Tim Elliott. I'm excited for that fight, though. Guys, Noche UFC is not going to Guadalajara, Mexico. They're going to San Antonio, Texas. Your reaction, guys? So still the same bat time, bat channel, all that stuff. But it's not a pay-per-view, it's a fight night. And I don't know what they're going to do with all these Mexican fighters that I thought they were going to maybe fill the card with, because a lot of them are based in Guadalajara, like Diego Lopez, like Alexa Grasso, Irene Aldana, and that team, the Lobo Gym team based there in Guadalajara. And of course, popular fighters like Yari Rodriguez and Brandon Moreno, who are Mexican born, but from another state. All right, so goes your thoughts here. Let's not forget, there's also a big boxing match. So there's a lot to unpack here, man. Going to San Antonio, right move? Do you like it? What do you think?
Well, I mean, if you can't do it there, then yeah, I would say San Antonio is a good spot to land. But it kind of caught me by surprise because this is something that a lot of people were pointing to a long time ago, that this could be a possibility. And it seemed like the UFC really rolled the dice here. Ending up in San Antonio, it's great. There is a large contingent of Mexican people there. But now it's a fight night. You got to look at Yair Rodriguez and wonder how much this hurts his case, right? There's a lot of things to unpack with the situation with it moving there, but ending up there, I think, is a good move.
Danny, you like it? And how much will this hurt Guadalajara? You've been to Guadalajara. You visited the gym. You did a feature on it. They got some big fighters, world champs, contenders. Can they bounce back from this? What are your thoughts, man? The whole thing just flipped up and blew up because it should have been a big hit for the UFC.
Yeah, props to the UFC for trying. One of the big criticisms for the first two installments of Noche UFC is that this event is made to celebrate Mexican independence, yes, yet it's being done in the States, right? And at least in the second one, it was headlined by two fighters that weren't Mexican, Merab and Sean O'Malley. So props to the UFC for, Hermano Merab. Some people are considering Mexican, but still, not Mexican blood technically in there. So props to the UFC for trying to take the event to Guadalajara, but this was a concern, and shout out to Rodrigo El Campo. He brought this up while we were covering UFC Mexico City in March. That arena looked halfway built back then. Like, it looked far from finished. And yet they were announcing that they were going to host an event there. And he kind of raised the flag like, hey, like, what are the assurances that the arena are giving you in making this event possible? Because it doesn't look done, and there's already a delay, and they've been canceling shows. The UFC swore that, that was going to continue, Dave Shaw. And as we got closer to the day, more and more shows got canceled until we got to the September. And, then it was undeniable. Like, they couldn't have the show there. It's not going to be done. So at least props to the UFC for trying. But I think it is a big blow, right? We went from having a pay-per-view in Mexico. I believe we haven't had a pay-per-view in Mexico since like UFC 180 something when Cain Velasquez fought Werdum. So it's been a while. So it would be a return of a big pay-per-view. Now we lose that opportunity, and it's going into a fight night. And also, it just feels like from a pay-per-view and the Sphere and all that to San Antonio and fight night, it just seems like the importance of Noche UFC is kind of getting dwindled here a little bit. But I guess we'll see once the finished product comes up. But if in general, big blow for Mexican MMA. This was a highly anticipated event, and I had people reach out to me that they were already getting their flights and stuff for that card.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you one of them wasn't Joe Pyfer. But anyway, Matt Wells, was your weekend crushed? You were probably going to lay in that lazy boy and enjoy Crawford and Canelo Alvarez at the stadium, have the UFC on another TV. You might have to cover this event for us, no?
Maybe we'll see. Hopefully it's headlined by Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez now. I mean, sometimes
that's a nice one, yeah.
Sometimes the MMA gods just clear the path for you and lay it all out on how it should go, because the complaints were, why is Yair being talked about getting another title fight against Volk after he got demolished the first time around, when you have Mobsar right there waiting for his title opportunity? So this whole arena not being ready thing, it's kind of like the universe saying, hey, let's just do this fight here, give Mobsar a shot against Volk somewhere else at the new pay-per-view. But besides that, it does kind of suck that this is now just a fight night, because you've already kind of established that the Noche UFC brand, so to speak, is a card that is going to have a title fight, at least one on there. So now that's kind of changed, and now we're just sticking it to a fight night with a different name on it, which kind of sucks. Yeah, it's not planned, but also, even if it's not planned, like, why are you going away from the numbered events? I don't get it.
Yeah. Guadalajara is like the second biggest city, I think, in Mexico. They got a proper soccer team. It's a cosmopolitan city. And this is one where I was actually considering wanting to go. I don't know if we do these pay-per-view watch-alongs, so we really don't get a chance to break away, but This is a city I've always wanted to visit. I think a lot of people are staying the same. You don't have to worry about the altitude. It doesn't have the altitude of Mexico City, but yeah, it's a bummer. I hope they go back there, when the stadium's ready and they don't hold it against the city, but that one kind of hurt, fellas. It really did. Anyways, all right, let's move on here. We got a big card on Saturday, UFC 316. Now, lately, because the UFC shoves so many cards down our throats, and then PFL chimes in, bare knuckle, celebrity boxing, the occasional Invicta, karate combat, you name it, that we don't even get excited till like Friday. Did everyone make weight? They ask, right? What was the stare downs like? Some people don't even watch the weigh-ins anymore. We got to bring it back. So let's start getting pumped up right now, guys. It's fight week. We got 2 title fights. Say what you will about the title fights. It's not Jones and Aspinall or anything like that, but still, Merab's didn't keep him busy. The winner of Pena and Harrison could draw Nunes out of retirement. And then look at these other fights. Luque versus Holland, they paid their dues. Batista versus Mix, a great welcoming to a champ in another league against a rising star in Batista. Gastelum and Pfeiffer, they got a little bit of beef going back to the fight that didn't happen in Mexico. So let's start getting properly pumped up. Let's start at the top. Merab Dvalishvili. Matt Wells, John Anik was on our show. He says Merab's already the best bantamweight ever. Do you share that sentiment? I've been picking people's brains. I think he still needs 1 or 2 title defenses, but John, don't forget, he said, if I were to get married this weekend, Dominic Cruz would be in my wedding. So it kind of hurt him to say it, but he had to keep it real.
I mean, I think the only thing holding Merab from clearly being the number 1 bantamweight right now is just the finishes. But if you look at his resume, dude, like his resume is stacked. It's wins against former champions up and down, legends of the sport, Aldo, Petr Yan, former champ, Henry Cejudo, Sean O'Malley, and now they're running that back. I mean, he's taken out pretty much everybody, but he just doesn't have the finishes that really put the stamp on it to make people say, damn, this dude is truly like untouchable. But in a sense, he still is untouchable because nobody's messing with his wrestling. Nobody's messing with his gas tank. He's just he literally is the most, he has the most apropos nickname in the sport, in the machine, because he just keeps going, dude.
Matt, I also forgot to open with your excitement level. What do you rate this card, by the way?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I give this about I will say a 7.
I would have been mad if you would have
Could be
said
better.
6.
Could be better, but it's not terrible. I'm excited.
What's it missing in your viewpoint?
I think the only thing that's really knocking it down for me is that main event rematch, like that a lot of people don't feel is warranted. I personally don't like the rematch for Sean O'Malley because it's like you only had one, like you didn't defend the title, right? Like, why are you getting the immediate rematch?
I hear you. All right, Danny, let's start with that. Your excitement level, 1 to 10. What do you rate this card?
I would say it's around a 7. I agree with Mr. Matt Wells here. I will say that it could crank up a little bit because I am heavily invested in that co-main event. Women's MMA in recent years has sucked. Let's keep it 100. But this is a fight that I'm actually very intrigued about. I think it's a fun one. I think the buildup is gonna steal the entire show, the headlines. For whatever reason, we're getting a much more tame or mature version of O'Malley. So there isn't that point of contention with Dvalishvili, which has really just made this fight sort of stand out even more. And then you add the little caveat that potentially it could lure back a legend, an all-time great. I'm very interested to see what happens in that co-main event. So I'll give it a 7. Let's leave some room for the face-offs and all that. Maybe I'll get a little bit more excited.
And folks, notice I told you at the beginning of the show, hit the like button, right? I didn't say subscribe. All the YouTubers say it. Now I'm saying it because let me tell you something. That press conference is going to be spicy. And that's what the Junkie channel has. Over 400,000 people have subscribed already. We do pre and post fight packages. We'll do the watch along on Saturday on this channel. But this is going to be a really, really good, not just the individual interviews that they do, but they'll have a press conference. I think Pena and Harrison are going to steal the show. So again, this channel, all you got to do is hit like, subscribe. We'll handle the rest. It's free. All right, Goes, your thoughts, man. Your level of excitement. What do you rate it 1 to 10?
I like where these guys are at. 7. Maybe I'll go 7.5. But I do feel like once all that stuff starts to kick off, we're going to go up probably another point. I do kind of believe Matt Wells. I feel the same. Had it not just been this immediate rematch, I think that's what's kind of hurting things a little bit, why we wouldn't give it a higher score. But I think once they get in front of each other, they're going to shed the nice guy stuff. And I think it's going to get back to being a little bit more intense. But like Danny said, a lot of us are here for the Kayla Harrison, Juliana Pena fight too.
Yeah. Goes, O'Malley's off social media. So, you know, he could have done a little bit more promoting along the way. He's already super popular, but that definitely could have helped out. He says it's his way of just kind of repairing himself, focusing himself, growing up. I think he even kicked the pot and everything. He's really focused on getting his title back, but he could go 0-2 against the champ, and then what?
Mm-hmm.
So we already know this probably shouldn't have been the matchup to make, but it's been made. What do you think, man, here for O'Malley? How big is this for him?
It's huge. Look, no matter what happens, Sean O'Malley is going to be fine. They match him up with whoever, people will be interested. They're going to watch. But in terms of wanting to have some sort of legacy, getting a belt back, this is really, really big. For him, though, the way that he's selling this fight is a little different because a lot of people felt like he didn't really deserve to be there in the first place. To me, he's saying all the things that I do want to hear, because on paper, watching that fight, I thought he has no business getting this rematch. But he's trying to tell you, look, I somewhat agree with this, and that's why I'm making all of these changes, where I'm doing all of these things to get better, to take this more serious. I thought what he did on that part, almost an admission of guilt, the getting off of social media, the pod, all the stuff that he said, that's what I want to hear. That's going to make me think that this can actually maybe not go a different way with the outcome, but at least be a better matchup this time around.
Early prediction goes, just give me a name.
The Machine.
All right. Matt, your thoughts. Early prediction. Let me see. I can count them on one hand. Tim Welch, Sean O'Malley, Chael Sonnen, and I think a relative of O'Malley's thought he actually won this first fight. He didn't. It was a blowout. But what do you think, man? Could he have closed the gap, repairing the hip and then doing all these other things that we discussed, getting off social media, just kind of cleaning up his life? Do you see a more competitive second fight here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be a much more competitive fight. I think it'll be. I still think it goes a distance, but I could see it being a 3-2 type of fight, with people complaining about a split decision, at the end sort of thing. But yeah, anytime a guy gets more serious about his training and really ramps up the focus, I think it's going to make for a better fight, especially a guy like Sean O'Malley, when people had questions about was he doing too much and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, but the only issue is he's running into Merab Dvalishvili again.
Danny, Merab also got through Umar Nurmagomedov. He was supposed to be the boogeyman of the division. Some would argue that title defense is probably going to be tougher than the upcoming, although MMA is a fascinating sport. It can surprise us when we least expect. What are your thoughts here going in? Oh, Matt, what was your early prediction? Machine still?
Yeah, machine.
Okay. And then Danny, I want a prediction out of you too after we get some thoughts from you.
What was the question? Sorry.
Just O'Malley might even be the easier title defense than Umar. I mean, that was a tough first hill he climbed in the title defense. Some people are saying now it's downhill going forward.
Yeah, it's certainly an easier fight, I think. And we saw already how it played out, and Merab lost the first couple rounds and then came back to win the rest of the fight against Umar and kind of wore him out. Whereas the other fight, he was dominant all throughout against O'Malley. So I honestly expect a similar fight. I'd be very surprised if this is competitive. I think I disagree there with Matt. But again, I could be wrong. We'll see. I've been wrong a million times before in these predictions. But yeah, I just think the world of Merab. I don't think O'Malley has the style to beat him. He's been active. His confidence has grown. We see it on social media as well. I think he's going to dominate Sean O'Malley, and I think he's probably going to take the fight a little bit more serious in the sense of wanting to make a statement. I'd be surprised if he kisses his back again and does all that stuff. So I'm not saying a finish, but maybe we do see some more damage delivered from the Machine.
Yeah, that toe's fine too, folks. This fight's on, man. All right, before we get to the co-main event, let me get some super chats in. First of all, thank you to Ernesto Lopez, makes a donation there. Shout out to you, a fist bump. L. Matthew, sorry. says, who has more of a chance of losing his undefeated, Topuria or Chimaev? Greetings to all of you guys. Who wants to take that one? You want to take that one, Danny? You're a
Chimaev.
big Topuria guy.
Chimaev.
Okay. You think DDP has more of a chance of beating Chimaev than Oliveira does of Topuria?
Yes.
You guys agree, Goes and Matt?
I think so. I mean, look, when you look at Topuria, what do you really point at and go, he really needs to get better at? Like, dude, the guy really hasn't shown too many weeknesses,
He's
if any,
moving
at
up.
all. At least Chimaev, don't we all kind of point, hey, look, sometimes he does get a little tired.
Yeah.
He's been hit before. I think it's Chimaev.
Matt,
Yeah, I agree. I
All
agree. It's
He-
Chimaev for sure.
He's got, I think, Topuria and Oliveira. I think Oliveira is a great matchup for Topuria, and there's a reason why he was also asking for that fight earlier in the year without even knowing that Islam was going to vacate. And I think Duplessis is probably the worst matchup out there for Chimaev. I think if Chimaev gets past Duplessis, we guaranteed 2 or 3 more title defenses from him.
All right. One more here from Aiden Denniston. What about the new Jones allegations from Big John? Okay, I happened to come across this one. This was on Weighing In, and John told a story about pre-fight when the referee goes in the back, and I guess Jones said, hey, can I show you this move on one of the other officials that were there? And of course, those guys thought, yeah, sure. Jones did some sort of a sexual act. John didn't like it, told him to cut it out. Even Greg Jackson apologized. What are our thoughts? I don't know. It was 55 minutes short that I happened to see. I happened to catch it this morning. But it's Jones-like, and depending on how far we go back, he obviously was in an even more immature stage, although just nothing surprises me with John Jones. But yeah, John didn't like it. No one seemed to like it. And that's not a good story to pop out now when someone's getting to wrap up their career. They're trying to be taken more serious and, be treated as the GOAT here. But thank you all for those submissions here. And if I see any more, I'll try and cut through to those. All right, the co-main event, man. I am pumped, guys. Who has more to win, Matt Wells? Juliana Pena or Kayla Harrison?
Kayla Harrison for sure. I mean, this is literally, like she said in the interview with Mike, and that beautiful video that he put together. She's on the 1 yard line, right? Everything is leading to this moment at UFC 316, the PFL championships, all of the Olympic wins, all that stuff. It all culminates here as far as combat sports goes. You get your UFC title shot finally. Are you going to deliver? I mean, I think the first fight takes place Friday morning. When she gets to that scale, is she going to hit 135? She's weighing in at 136. You got to hit championship weight in order to win that title. So that's a big fight right there. And then actually, once she gets into the cage, once that cage door closes, I think it'll be pretty not easy, but I think we all know the path to victory for her. And I think she can definitely get Juliana Pena down and dominate the fight on the mat. And if that happens, then we'll be looking at a new champ for sure.
Goes, do you agree? Let's not forget, if Pena were to win, she could say, hey, look at the skins on my wall. Nunes and Harrison, along with some of the others.
I feel like Juliana Pena is battling 2 things that night. She's battling Kayla Harrison, but I think she's also battling the previous performance. It was not a good performance, and I want to figure out, was that just a bad night for her? Is that where she's at in her career right now? What's going on there? So there's a lot of pressure on both gals, but like Matt said, Kayla Harrison is on the verge of becoming a superstar, and to add a UFC belt on top of all your other accolades is just enormous.
All right. Well, what's the best result for the UFC in your opinion, Danny? Maybe this will also answer the question about who has more to win and who has more to lose. But what's the UFC kind of scraping their hands on in the back when this fight starts?
It's got to be Kayla Harrison. I don't think it's the end of the world if Pena wins, because maybe you can do a rematch because there's a lot of bad blood, especially if the fight's competitive. Maybe it's even enough to lure back Amanda Nunes for a trilogy. Like, it certainly gets interesting. So I don't think it'd be terrible if Pena wins. But if Kayla Harrison wins, I do think that's the bigger upside for the UFC. Like, you have a girl that's highly marketable, that I feel like is just starting to kind of tap onto that star potential, whereas Juliana Peña has been around for a while and she kind of is who she is at this point. And I think there's more guarantee in luring back Amanda Nunes if Kayla Harrison wins. So certainly a lot on the line for the company here. Women's MMA, especially that division 135, was key in around 2016 or so for the UFC to blow up at that point in time. McGregor as well, but obviously Ronda Rousey and all those other Miesha Tate and many other big fights that we saw at the time. Man, if Kayla Harrison wins, I think we can enter like a nice little run here where the UFC bantamweight, women's bantamweight division gets hot again.
Danny, does the result matter? I'll give you an example. What if Pena wins, but what if it is a slow, kind of boring fight like the Pennington fight? Remember, Amanda came back to avenge the loss, steamrolled her. No one called for a part 3, so could even that lure her back? Maybe now the money, maybe than the performance.
I think even if it's boring and Kayla wins, there's enough there of a storyline and probably money for Nunes to want to return. But yeah, I hope that it's exciting, because that certainly would be the best result, right? And I do think it will be. It's hard. I mean, we've seen it before, but when people talk this much trash, at each other, it's hard to have a fight that's like boring. It has happened before, but I don't know. I picture this being a high-paced fight, and whoever wins is going to do it in an exciting way, an exciting manner.
Don't you guys feel like Nunes is coming back regardless? Whenever you see a retired fighter even throw it out like that, yeah. I feel like she's going to come back. I actually think she'll fight before John Jones does or Conor McGregor. I really think she wants to get back out there.
Check you out with the predictions. All right.
Well, I do believe Amanda Nunes is going to return no matter what, but I think there's more of a chance, or we get a little bit more of security if Kayla Harrison wins as opposed to Juliana Peña.
Wow. Check out the chat. The chat's chiming in well. I should have went to the chat earlier, but Joseph Bosa says, what is funny is that people gave Juliana crap because she called BS on Amanda retired. Amanda is coming back or wanting to, and Juliana is still getting crap. That's a pretty good point there. He says, he continues, if Juliana retains, will Amanda come back? No, in his opinion. Pro Schmo Bets says Shevchenko versus Nunes. That's pretty funny, but I don't think that's too far off. Usually fighters that are down 2-0 don't plead that case, but with Shevchenko kind of breaking or getting close to breaking some records, you never know. Plus, again, they get paid money to fight. So if the fight's big enough, whatever. Karate Cat Tetun says UFC wants Kayla to win big time. I agree. Nader Gator 84 says a Peña win can also lure in Shevchenko. Since she holds a win over Peña, she may want to jump and go for another point. Great point there. Pro Schmo Bets comes back and says Shevchenko will not face Weili. UFC doesn't pair legends like that. Their stock loss probably means their stock drops. I mean, they have Penn fought GSP. It's not like they haven't. I guess they haven't as much as of late. So good stuff here from the chat. Guys, time for the prediction, the early prediction. We turn in our staff picks on the site, but that's later in the week. Matt, let's go to you. Who are you leaning towards right now before you see interviews and weight cuts and stuff?
Oh, Kayla Harrison.
All right. Goes?
I'm going Kayla as well.
Danny, unanimous?
Kayla Harrison, yep.
Damn, I was hoping for a split and Danny would be the tiebreaker, but yeah, I kind of feel the same, man. That weight cut's probably going to be the biggest fight of the week for her. All right. Let's talk about the rest of the card. It's pretty solid. I have no complaints on opening bout, swing bout, featured bout. So let's talk about them. Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. They were supposed to fight in Mexico. Did not go down. Danny, give me a prediction.
Oh, I'm going to go with Joe Pyfer. He's just so much bigger than Kelvin. I don't like Kelvin at middleweight. I always think that like welterweight is his home, but I just don't think he can get his diet and all that in order. So here he is at middleweight. He is a good fighter. He's solid. I think he can give Joe Pyfer a tough fight. I thought he maybe was a good underdog pick fighting in Mexico because Joe Pyfer was only there for a couple weeks. And Kelvin Gastelum did his entire camp there. So, knowing the cardio that Kelvin already possesses, maybe he can push the pace, tire him out, finish him late or something like that. But keeping in mind, this is in New York, not elevation. I'm going to go with Joe Pyfer.
Goes?
Man, so Kelvin's danced with the elite, man, at 170, 185. I don't think he's going to be intimidated, but even in wins, he still takes damage, and damage from Joe Pyfer is just something else, dude. That guy is so massive and so aggressive. We'll know in the first 2 minutes probably how this fight's going to go, but I think Joe probably pulls it off.
Matt, your thoughts? Let's not forget the Joker. He kind of broke Pyfer a little bit, so it's not impossible. You just kind of got to get out of that first round a little bit and then see where Pyfer stands after that.
Yeah, I could see that playing out like that, but man, like kind of like Go said, like the power difference, I think is going to be what determines this fight. I think Kelvin is obviously, I think he's a little bit slicker with his boxing, but can he make up for the power difference? I don't know. I don't think so, and that's why I'm picking Pyfer as well.
Matt, we stay with you. Mario Batista against Patchy Mix. Mix coming in from Bellator with a stop at PFL. Only one loss in his career. He's won a Grand Prix. He's won a belt. He's defended the belt. Some people have even tabbed him as the #1 bantamweight in the world. It's just kind of hard to either prove it or keep it up because of the lack of talent there in the other leagues. What are your thoughts here?
Man, I love this fight. I love this for the debut for Patchy Mix, because not only is it a chance to prove himself, but it's a chance to prove himself against a guy who doesn't go out there and lay down for anybody by any means. Like Mario Batista is going to bring it to him, and he's going to make it to be like, hey, welcome to the UFC, my guy. But if Patchy Mix can go out there and submit him or make it look easy, he's got to be in a title picture like immediately right after that.
Goes, what are your thoughts? Remember, Batista was supposed to fight Vera in Iowa, then in Newark, and now he's still fighting in Newark, but now it's a whole different opponent.
My thoughts are fear, because one of them lives about 10 minutes from my house. But when you have two fighters that are so even, this fight can go so many different ways. They're such well-prepared fighters. I look at the situation, and I know a lot of people say, like, Patchy Mix doesn't really do camps. He's just always in the gym. But being thrusted into another organization, having this type of opponent, that's the only thing that makes me kind of lean towards Batista, but that might change come fight night.
How about you, Danny? The UFC vet or the incoming Mix? Who do you like here?
Ooh, I think this is a close fight. I think a lot of people are picking Mix because obviously he's champion. He just seems to have a better record and has a little bit more prestige than Mario. But I think Mario can give him a tough fight here. Mario's big for the division. So I'm going to go with Mix, but I can't say I'm too confident on that pick, to be honest.
Reminder that Goes and I will be doing a watch long. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for 4 featured prelim fights. Then the pay-per-view starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. That's the part where you have to pay for it. If you choose not to pay for it, allow Goes and I to be our eyes and ears, and we'll tell you what's happening in real time. Our colleague Farah Hanoun will host a UFC 316 preview show at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I love those. One of the guys from Junkie will jump in, and if she can, call me up. I'll fly with you. All right, Goes.
Is that Top Gun?
Yeah, Viper.
Okay.
Viper said that the Maverick. We got about a minute left, so let's make this quick, guys. Another highlight from UFC 316. What are we missing? Shut a spotlight. Danny Segura, go.
Ooh, there's a lot. This undercard's actually pretty decent. I'm gonna go with Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. That is a very intriguing fight. You don't really know what you get with Vicente Luque at this point in his career. You never know what you're getting with Kevin Holland at this point as well. So it's just kind of a toss-up. Let's see what happens. But what we do know is that both these guys like to strike. They like to get in the pocket and mix it up. They got power on both hands. So I think it's going to be a fun fight. And there's a reason why it's opening the pay-per-view main card. So looking forward to it.
One of them's gonna lose steam, man. This one's got some stakes in it.
I'd be surprised if it goes to decision. I think someone's.
How about you, Goes? Who do you want to shed a spotlight on here for UFC 316?
I like the Bruno Silva Joshua Van fight. If you look up and down their records and see the way they fight and the way fights end for both of them, I think this is going to be fireworks the whole fight. I think it'll go 3 rounds, but I do think there'll be a finish eventually.
Two little Tasmanian devils with Red Bulls in them. How about you, Matt?
My pick may surprise some people, but I promise, just stay with me now. Stay with me for a minute. Sergey Spivak versus Waldo Cortez Acosta is my pick to be excited about. Why?
Explain here.
Why? This is only the 4th the only 4th top 10 matchup in the heavyweight division in 2025. Like, that's how bad heavyweight has been this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we finally get some action, top 15, and somebody has the chance to move up the rankings a little bit. And at the very top of that division, if we don't get this at some point in the broadcast, if we don't get either John Jones versus Tom Aspinall announcement or John Jones is stripped during this broadcast, I'm gonna riot. Because, like, what are we waiting on at this point? We need to have one of
Waldo
those two
talks
things
some
happen.
smack too during his fights. He makes it fun and spicy.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Waldo's fun.
Absolutely. But I mean, listen, we're getting ranked heavyweights, man. We need to get some movement in that division. So we finally have ranked heavyweights going at it, and then we need that announcement of the fight or the stripping. That's what we need.
I just want somebody to put a live camera on Matt Willis, because I have a feeling we're not gonna get any news on that. But
He's gonna take that hat off and throw it down and stomp it.
Holding out.
All right. Look, earlier I crapped on the UFC for not giving a bonus to Dustin Jacoby. I got to give him props. One of the nice things they do is they can maneuver around bodies, right? Andreas Gustafsson, he didn't fight in this last fight card, right, that just took place this past weekend. They're moving him to fight Chaos Williams. So opponent switching, but they're doing it. Guys are getting paid. That's always a good thing. So I like that they're always just kind of keeping an eye, not just on the stars, but some of the other ones that do training camps. Coaches, they expect to get paid as well. Some of their fans, they want to travel and see. And so if you can get it within a week of each other, you can sometimes save the show here for these guys. So props to them. That should be a fun fight. And both those guys are knockout machines too. They have some pretty high rates, especially Gustafsson. I think 8 out of the 11 wins. Williams is more like 7 out of 15, but that have been KOs. But I don't think that one's going to go to the judges. All right. Again, final reminder, Goes and I will be doing that watch along. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, 4 featured prelims. And then we go to the pay-per-view. Also, Overreaction Time. Check that out. It's our new video franchise here on this channel where it's all free. Like and subscribe. That's Simon Samano with one of the junkies talking about the 5 stories from the week where he tries to ask you if he's overreacting or not. He's got some hot takes. This show, SBC, can be seen in podcast form on Tuesday. It's released wherever you get your favorite podcasts like Junkie Radio. We're at Omni, and we're also at Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. Go get SBC if you're more of the headphone thing, listening, and you don't want the video. We're over 400,000 subscribers, so thank you all for helping us get there. Let's get to 500,000, right? And then all it takes is a quick click from you. Keep it locked on MMA Junkie throughout the week for the best coverage in MMA. We got 2 people on site there this week for UFC 316. And that's it for this week. We'll see you next week again on Spinning Back Clique. Thank you, and go out and be a champion.